Things have become a bit problematic in the Mariners rotation. I'll discuss why and also give you my top 3 Mariners prospect seasons coming up here on the Locked On Mariners podcast.
You are Locked On Mariners, your daily Seattle Mariners podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Ahoy, sailors. It is Wednesday, September 11th, 2024. This is Ty Gonzalez for the Locked On Mariners podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I'm on my own today. Colby is out of town for the next couple days. He'll be back on Friday. I believe the plan for tomorrow's episode is that Ben Ranieri will be joining me for that one. But here's what we're going to get into today. Luis Castillo has a grade 2 hamstring strain. I'll tell you what that means. The Mariners lost to the Padres last night and lost ground in the wild card race, but not in the division race. It was another rough outing for George Kirby in that one, and we'll talk about him a little later on. And now that Everett has wrapped up its season, Modesto has started the playoffs, and Arkansas is about to as well. Thought it would be a good time to rank my top 3 prospect seasons, not prospects, but the seasons they had down in the Mariners farm system this year. Now, before we get into all that, shout out to our title sponsor today, Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. That's LOCKEDONMLB on the Game Time app. And if you want to hear from me and Colby even more and help support the show, check out our Patreon. The link is in the description. You can sign up for a free 7-day trial. So it was announced yesterday by the Mariners that they have placed Luis Castillo on the 15-day IL with a grade 2 hamstring strain. Now, there are more than 15 days left in the season. Not many more than that, but there are more than 15 days left in the season. Mariners general manager Justin Hollander, in his meeting with the local media yesterday when this decision was announced, did seem to leave the door open for the possibility that Castillo could return once those 15 days are up. But I would think that that would require the Mariners to still be in serious contention for the postseason. So I would say from the outside looking in, seems pretty likely that Castillo is done for 2024. And this might be the last we have seen of Castillo in a Mariners uniform in general. Maybe that start in St. Louis is the last time we'll see Luis Castillo in the Navy in Northwest Green. Because obviously there's been a lot of chatter about the Mariners potentially trading one of their starting pitchers this offseason, and a lot of the attention has been placed on, Logan Gilbert, George Kirby, Bryce Miller, Brian Wu in that regard. But I wouldn't be surprised if Castillo is actually the one that ends up getting dealt, despite having that no trade clause for another year on his contract. Now, that does lift once 2025 is over, and that would obviously make trading Castillo a lot easier in theory for the Mariners. But I look around the league, I look at what's coming up here in free agency, and I look at what Castillo is making, and I know there's some pushback here on, is Castillo actually worth the money that he's making? Is, he's not even the best pitcher in the Mariners rotation, and he's making the most money, yada, 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 yada. Castillo is still a great value at $24.1 million. 3.64 ERA this year, 3.92 FIP. 3.83 xFIP, basically a strikeout per inning this year, 2.41 walks per 9. And, you could say this until Sunday. He has been healthy. He has posted. He has pitched in every possible game the Mariners have asked him to pitch in since acquiring him around the trade deadline in 2022. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of value in that. And that's still a great deal for Castillo. And I think the teams that would be interested in Castillo this offseason are, the same teams that would not only take on at least most of that contract, but also he would actually waive his no trade clause for. I'm talking teams like the Dodgers and the Phillies, etc. Now, I'm not Luis Castillo, of course, but you would think in theory, if a team like the Phillies, a team like the Dodgers, someone that's going to definitively compete for a championship next year comes calling, that he would have interest in joining that team. And I also think those teams would have some pieces that would be interesting to the Mariners as well. But, we'll get into all those discussions this offseason. There will be plenty of time to talk about that. But, it is possible, maybe not likely, but it is possible that we have seen the last of Luis Castillo in Seattle. So the Mariners' corresponding move for the Castillo being placed on the injured list was bringing back Seby Zavala. So now they have 3 catchers on the roster with Cal and Mitch Garver. I think this is just temporary. This is just for the few days here in between Castillo's last start and when his turn in the rotation comes up. Now, it's possible they might skip his turn in the rotation, this upcoming turn in the rotation, because they did have the day off on Monday. They could absolutely do that. Or they will just send, Zavala down. Well, they'll have to DFA Zavala and bring up Emerson Hancock or Jonathan Diaz, probably one of those 2 guys. I mean, the more fun outcome, and there's nothing really fun here because, obviously Luis Castillo is hurt, but the more fun outcome here for me would be Brandon Garcia, Logan Evans, but that's probably not going to happen. But yeah, I don't think Zavala is here for more than a week and probably the next 3 to 4 days, more likely. But things are pretty problematic in the Mariners rotation at the moment, and that goes beyond the Castillo injury. George Kirby was bad again last night against the Padres, and he's been bad for, I don't know, the last 5 or so weeks, give or take. And there's no real qualifier to put on that, right? He hasn't been bad for George Kirby's standards. He hasn't been bad for the Mariners rotation standards. It's just been bad, full stop. And last night was no exception to that. 5 earned runs and 7 hits over 5 innings pitched. 2 home runs allowed, 3 runs shot to Fernando Tatis Jr., 2 runs shot to Manny Machado. Both of those pitches, middle fastballs. One of them a sinker, the other 4-seam that was deposited over the center field wall by Machado, which I believe made him the all-time leader in home runs for Padres franchise history. You look at what Kirby has done over, again, like the last, I don't know. Yeah, I would say like 4.5 weeks. He had that start at home against Detroit where he wasn't particularly great. I mean, he only gave up 3 runs, but he wasn't particularly great in that outing. Only went 5 innings in that one. Then the disastrous start, arguably the worst start of his entire career, where the Tigers rattled off 11 runs off of him, 6 of them earned. Obviously Kirby not helped at all by his defense in that game, but still really, really poor outing for Kirby in that one. Just went 3 2/3. Gave up 2 earned runs against the Pirates. That one was fine. 6 innings pitched. And then 4 2/3 against the Giants. Gave up 3 earned runs on 9 hits in that one. That's not what you want to see out of George Kirby. Then the Angels, where he got the big lead and allowed the Angels to get back into that game. The Mariners, fortunately, still won that game. But he gave up 5 earned runs in that one to a bad lineup. Just struck out 2. Bounced back pretty well in Oakland against a good A's lineup. But then this happens against the Padres. And this is not atypical for Kirby. We have seen these kinds of starts from him multiple times over the course of this whole season. It's not just isolated to the last few weeks. I mean, to start the season, he had the 8-run game against Cleveland in his second start. Then the next time he went out against Toronto, he gave up 5. And then from that point forward, he was pretty good until they got to the East Coast road trip where he faced Baltimore, gave up 5 in that one, and then gave up 5 to the Nationals his next time out. And from that point forward, he was like really, really freaking good for, 2 consecutive months. And that's when we get to the most recent stretch that he has been on. And It's really just a product. Again, as we talked about, this isn't breaking news. Things haven't really changed with Kirby and his profile. This is a product of him not really having a consistent out pitch, a consistent put away pitch. And when you are in the strike zone as consistent as Kirby is, and you don't have a consistent out pitch to rely upon, some teams are going to hit you hard unless you can locate absolutely perfectly. And for as good as Kirby has been, and he still might have the best command in all of baseball of any pitcher in baseball, it's unreasonable to expect him to have that every single night out. And when he doesn't have that, you see what happens, right? So it's going to be really interesting to see how he attacks this offseason. And if he comes back and has something that he's worked on that can get more swing and miss with more regularity. Because we have seen him get ambushed before in previous seasons, but maybe not as often as we've seen it this year. Because it's been about, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, let's call it 7 starts out of the 30 he's made where he's getting just smoked, like outright smoked. And then there's a handful of other starts where, you know, he only goes 5 innings or 4 innings, doesn't really strike out anyone. The pitch count gets high because guys are fouling off a lot of pitches. You know, he gets through it with only a couple of runs against him, but isn't able to get deep into games because, again, teams are cranking up that pitch count against him, fouling off all those pitches that are in the strike zone. So really interesting to see how he attacks this offseason, and if we're going to see an actually visibly different George Kirby and an approach from George Kirby in 2025. Because right now there's too much variance for you to feel really all that confident going into each start of his right now. So again, Mariners lose 7-3 last night. I have a couple of other thoughts that I want to go over on that game, and then we'll get into what the playoff picture is looking like after that loss in just a moment. But first, a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you by Game Time. So some of you may not know this, but I used to live in New Mexico, and down in New Mexico, there are 0 pro sports teams. And a lot of the bands and artists that I listen to skip going there more often than not. So when I moved to Toronto, where there's a baseball team, a basketball team, a hockey team, even a soccer team, and there's great music being played every night in the city, yeah, I was right in my element. And when I want to catch a ball game or my wife and I want to see a band, I always get our tickets through Game Time. And that was the case well before Game Time sponsored our network and before I even joined the network, because it is truly the best ticketing service, hands down. I really, really believe that. And now it's getting even better thanks to Game Time Picks. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I can just go on the app, it'll show me the best deal right away, it'll show me the exact view I'll have, and most importantly, it'll tell me exactly what I'm going to pay with Game Time's all-in pricing, so there are no annoying little fees that pop up at the very last second. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. You can catch all the action between the Mariners and the Padres tonight on the Mariners hometown broadcast with SiriusXM via the SXM app. All you have to do to find that is search the word Mariners. Great pitching matchup in that one, by the way. Michael King against Brian Wu, who of course is by far my favorite pitcher in the Mariners rotation right now to watch. So really looking forward to seeing him and seeing how he approaches the start, and if it's similar to how he approached his last time out against the A's, where he threw a little bit of everything. It wasn't a predominantly fastball outing like basically every other start of his has gone at the professional level. So is that just kind of like an outlier start, that one down in Oakland, or is that actually something that, you know, he's starting to feel himself and he's starting to try and figure some other things out and figure out other ways to attack hitters? I'm really, really interested to see how that goes today, especially against a lineup as good as the Padres. So you look at what the Mariners did last night. I have really just one more thought. I said a couple that I had a couple thoughts on last night's game, but it's really just, it boils down to one thing that I really want to focus on here from last night's 7-3 loss to the Padres. And that's that 7th inning where the Mariners had bases loaded, 1 out. They already scored a run off of Tanner Scott. They had an opportunity to get back into this game. It's 7-3 at the time. That ends up being the final score, of course. And they get the guy that, in theory, you should one up in that situation, Julio Rodriguez. But I mean, what can be said that hasn't already been said a million times about Julio in these situations and how they have gone more often than not for Julio in these situations, especially this year. Jason Adam comes into the game, and I think it was a 2-2 count. Maybe it was a full count that Julio gets, and Adam delivers a hanging changeup for Julio that should be just absolutely destroyed. And instead, he finds some way, and I still can't even wrap my head around how this is even possible. He finds some way to hit that pitch into the dirt for an inning-ending double play. And that just about sums up, I mean, Julio's season, this Mariners offense's season, in one play. Right? In one singular moment, I think we saw what the story of just this ball club in general has been in 2024. Julio ends up going 0 for 5 in this game. A couple of strikeouts. He did have a hard hit ball, but yeah, not a great day for Julio. It's unfortunate because the Mariners did get out to a 2-0 lead in this game. They get a couple of solo shots from Cal Raleigh and Luke Raley, but then Tatis hits the 3-run home run, and that opened the floodgates for the Padres. But you look at the box score, 10 hits for the Mariners. They struck out fewer than 9 times. Clearly the offense is fixed if you're just, going off of those numbers. But yeah, just the 3 runs. And then, in a couple of big situations, they also had runners at first and second in the 8th inning. And Polanco can't get the job done in that situation. Yeah. Just struggling consistently to take advantage of good opportunities to score runs. Now, obviously, this is a really good Padres bullpen. Do want to give them some credit, but they weren't at the top of their games last night. Tanner Scott wasn't at the top of his game last night. Jason Adam wasn't at the top of his game last night. Neither was Robert Suarez. But the Mariners just couldn't take advantage of it. And yeah, that's how you end up in the place that you've been at pretty much all year as an offense and as a ball club. So the Mariners didn't get any help around the league as far as the wild card is concerned. The A's did beat the Astros last night, so the Mariners are still 4.5 back of the Astros in the division. But now they're 4 games back of the Twins, which is essentially 5 games back because they don't have because they've lost the tiebreaker to Minnesota. They are also now in a tie with the Red Sox, but of course they don't have the tiebreaker on the Red Sox, and they don't have the tiebreaker on the Tigers either, who they are now a game behind. So they have 2 teams that they have to leapfrog just to get behind the wild card 3, which is the Twins, who continue to struggle. And look, you look at the schedules for all these teams. Twins have 4 against the Guardians. They have 3 against the Orioles to wrap up the year. The Tigers, I believe, have 6 against the Orioles remaining and 3 against the Royals. The Red Sox have 3 against the Orioles, and I believe 3 or 4 against the Yankees, and I believe 3 against the Twins as well. So the Red Sox and the Twins, at the very least, are going to be kind of beating up on one another. But, you also have another game against the Padres tonight. You have the Yankees. You have the Astros. The A's have been one of the hottest teams in baseball in the second half. And, as we just saw down in Oakland a few days ago, like that's not a team that's just going to let you, walk all over them. So it's going to be tough sledding for the Mariners. And again, as I've been saying for the last couple of weeks, it is highly unlikely that they're going to be able to get this done. It is still mathematically possible. And again, considering how tough the schedules of the teams they're chasing are, certainly could happen, right? But you got to take care of business. And this team has just been so wildly inconsistent that I just don't think, I think, I'll put it like this. I think the Twins, the Tigers, the Red Sox, the Astros will give them the opportunities to get back in this thing. I just don't think they're capable of getting out of their own way. I just don't think they're good enough to do that right now. They certainly are not consistent enough for me to think otherwise. And I still think it's all the more likely that if they are going to make the playoffs, it's going to be by winning the division. It's not going to be by sneaking into the wild card. Because at the very least, you still have that 3-game series against the Astros that's lingering here in the next couple weeks. So I want to switch things up and talk about some prospects, because the minor leagues are starting to wrap up around the circuit. Everett is done in high A. Their season is over. Modesto began their playoffs with a win last night. Good to see. Congrats to the Nuts on that. We'll see if they're able to put a bow on the division series here in the coming days. And Arkansas is going to be starting the playoffs here in about a week, I believe. So I want to highlight the top 3 seasons by Mariners prospects this year. Not the top 3 prospects. These guys are not the top 3 prospects in our rankings, but the top 3 seasons that these guys have had. And I also have some thoughts on another prospect that's not going to make my list, but I feel is worth talking about here in just a moment. But first, a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps on PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. You could turn $10 into $1,000. Cook up hot takes with your friends and win real money this football season when you and your crew run your game on PrizePicks. Download the PrizePicks app today and use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's promo code LOCKEDONMLB on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. Once again, you can catch all the action between the Mariners and the Padres tonight on the Mariners hometown broadcast with SiriusXM via the SXM app. All you have to do to find that is search the word Mariners. So once again, minor league baseball starting to wrap up across the circuit. Everett, once again, is done for the year. Modesto started the playoffs last night. Arkansas getting close to starting the playoffs. Rainiers are still going, but we are getting close to the finish line on all levels of minor league baseball for 2024. And I wanted to use this as an opportunity to highlight 3 of the best seasons Mariners prospects have had down on the farm. Not the 3 best prospects in general, but 3 best seasons. Want to make that very clear. Want to make that distinction very clear here. So what factors into this is how much did they elevate their profile, right? How impressive was their season overall? And I think someone that exemplifies that to a T is Brandon Garcia, who wasn't on my radar heading into the season, wasn't on Colby's radar heading into the season. Someone who was drafted around after Brandon Garcia and also kind of came out of nowhere, kind of took the spotlight to start the year. That was Logan Evans. But Garcia has really been the one that has made a name for himself with his year this year. He only threw 10 combined innings last year between the Complex League and Low A Modesto after getting drafted. Starts the year in High A this year, dominates, gets called up to Double A, and adapts really well. Now, the walks have kind of gotten out of hand down in Double A this year. But overall, 2.42 ERA, 3.59 FIP, 3.92 xFIP, and 44 2/3 innings pitched over the course of 12 starts for Garcia in Double A. His numbers on the year in total: 2.07 ERA, 133 strikeouts. If I'm not mistaken, that leads all Mariners minor league pitchers this year. It's also a 3.15 FIP between High A and Double A. 10.59 Ks per nine, 3.66 walks per nine. Just an excellent year for Brandon Garcia, who, again, the Mariners just kind of took a shot on in the round last year out of Texas A&M, and he has developed into a real legit prospect who has a decent chance of factoring into the Mariners rotation depth as soon as the start of next year. Coming in at number 2, someone that a lot of Mariners fans love, of course, Lazaro Montes. I mean, insane year for Laz, right? Answered more questions about his hit tool, hit for a high average in Low A this year, just dominated that level in 309 plate appearances, 309, 411, 527. That's a 148 WRC plus. Just struck out 19.1% of the time. Significantly lowered his strikeout rate from the year before in Low A. 13.9% walk rate, 13 home runs, 72 ribs over that time. The strikeout rate did go significantly up when he got to High A Everett, but he still walked 15% of the time. Got off to obviously a very slow start in Everett, but over the last few weeks, just straight up dominated. I think we've all seen what he did when the Aqua Sox were down in Eugene about a week or so ago. He ends up slashing 260, 378, 427. That's a 125 WRC plus, 8 home runs, 33 RBI. Again, 29.6% K rate, 15% walk rate as an Aqua Sox. Wraps up the year as a whole with a 288 average, 397 on base percentage, 484 slug. It's a 138 WRC plus for him across Low A and High A, and doing that all at the age of 19 years old. 21 home runs, 21 doubles, couple triples. Really good year for Laz Montes. He also cleared the century mark in RBI this year. And then coming in at number 1 is another 19-year-old Mariners prospect. And again, this is someone that exemplifies elevating their profile, doing something really impressive to a T. Michael Arroyo had himself a hell of a year this year in the minors and answered the biggest question about him, I think, which is, can he actually produce consistent power output? Because that's going to have an impact on his offensive profile, obviously, but it's also going to have an impact on where does he play? Because that was a huge question mark, is where does Michael Arroyo fit on the diamond? So now I think he's shown that he can hit for enough power where you can at least get away with it at third base. But if you want to put him at second base or even at shortstop, like, you're going to get probably above average power for those positions. So he did this like Laz Montes at 19 years old as well. He dominated Low A, 279, 404, 500. That's a 141 WRC plus, 20.2% strikeout rate, 12.9% walk rate, 11 homers, 49 ribs, 8 stolen bases. And then he goes to High A and he hits even better, which is wild. He ended up playing 120 games overall on the year. And it's a perfect split between Low A and High A. 60 games in Low A, 60 games in High A. In High A, 293, 97, 519. That's a 155 WRC plus, 25.9% K rate, 11.7% walk rate. So yeah, the strikeouts did go up. That's a little bit of a concern, but not too egregious. 12 home runs, 40 RBI, 10 steals, 23 home runs total between the two levels of the minors for Michael Arroyo. That is a huge development for him, considering he had 3 in 2023. over 61 games. So about half of what he played this year. So do the math. That's a 120-ish game pace of about 6 home runs, right? So yeah, Arroyo, again, answered quite a few questions this year. He wraps up the year in total, slashing 285, 400, 509. So 148 WRC plus between the two levels, 23% K rate, 12.3% walk rate. Lastly, I want to talk about Colt Emerson. He doesn't make the list. Those were my top 3: Brandon Garcia, Las Montes, and Michael Arroyo. Arroyo being number 1, Montes being number 2, Garcia being number 3, if I didn't make that clear. But I want to talk about Colt Emerson, who had a really interesting first full year of pro ball, also at the age of 19 years old, or really at the age of 18 years old. He turned 19 on July 20th. This was a lot of stop and start for Emerson this year. He got hurt a couple times. Ends up slashing 293, 440, 427. That's a 142 WRC plus down in low A. Struck out just 14% of the time. Ended up walking more than he struck out. 18.1% walk rate. A couple of homers, 25 RBI, 6 steals for Emerson. Then he went to high A and wasn't great in the 29 games that he played. Not concerned about that whatsoever. But he ends up slashing just 225, 331, 317. That's a 90 WRC plus, 21.6% K rate, 10.8% walk rate during that time. Had a couple of homers, 12 ribs, 9 stolen bases actually over that 29 game stretch. I would think, and this is the reason that I wanted to talk about Colt Emerson real quick. I would think he's someone that we're probably going to see in the Arizona Fall League. Played 40 games in low A, 29 games in high A. You would think that the Mariners would want to get him more game action before the calendar year is over, right? So I think he's a prime candidate to play in Arizona this fall. All right. So that's going to do it for me. Hey, if you've watched the Mariners minors this year, or you've kept up with the Mariners minors at least, let me know down below in the comments who had the 3 best seasons of any Mariners prospect this year. Before I get out of here, a reminder that Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Thank you so much for joining me here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. I've been your host, Tiding Gonzalez. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at LO_Mariners. You can follow me at Tiding Gonzalez and my co-host Colby at CPAT11. That's CPAT11. You can also find all that stuff in the description of this episode. Now head on over to Locked On Seahawks to get all the latest on the Hawks with Corbin Smith and the gang, and tell them Ty and Colby sent you. Have yourself a beautiful baseball day, and we'll see you next time. Peace.